Hello, I'm Goergene Lahm from Home Instead Senior Care, here today with Christy, a working family caregiver who faced some tough choices when her father became ill and died several years ago. Christy, describe your relationship with your dad.
As a young child, my dad and I were very close. We'd often go on bike rides and fishing together. Unfortunately, my parents did get a divorce when I was 5 years old, and he moved to California. And our relationship was very distant. He didn't come back and visit very often, but we kept in close contact through writing letters weekly, calling weekly. As he grew older and his health declined, he did move back, and our relationship got close again.
I'd be interested to know when you assumed a greater role in your father's care.
My dad eventually had a stroke, which landed him in the Veterans Hospital in Grand Island. And unfortunately, his relationship with all of his children was somewhat strained, and so I was probably the closest daughter to him. And I basically just felt the need that someone needed to step up and take that role with Dad, especially after his sister passed away unexpectedly. He didn't have a lot of people in his life, unfortunately, to take that lead role.
Gosh, that sounds tough, Christy. How did caregiving impact you on your job?
At that time, I was working 40 plus hours a week. We were just starting a family, so finances were tight. And so at that position, I was often asked to work overtime and did so. So it made it harder to see my dad, but we still went down almost weekly. At first, when I had a lot of vacation time, it seemed a lot easier because he was constantly taking a turn for the worst. And so during those times when I was called, obviously I wanted to be there as a daughter. And so it was very easy for me to go. But as the years passed on, since he was there several years, my vacation time drained, and it just made it a lot harder to get there.
Okay, when did things start to get really difficult for you at work?
They had a policy at that time that you were able to, if you wanted to give someone vacation hours, you could. And so I had a friend that very generously gave me some of her hours. And as those tapped out, it was just harder to make that trip because I felt very obligated to my job. And my manager was kind of like, you've taken a lot of time off and you're constantly telling me that, he might not make it through the night. And he does. And of course, no one wanted him to pass away.
Describe your last emergency call.
When I got the call that he wasn't doing well and found out that I really couldn't take the time off of work. And I guess I did feel like, he's been through this many, many times, and he's such a, pulls through each time that I guess I didn't feel like this would be the last time. Looking back, it's a huge regret of mine that I didn't stand up. I didn't know what I know now, in the sense that I probably would have been like, hey, I will take the time off without pay. I'm going to go and nothing's going to stop me. Looking back, during that time, I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell my manager that. I was worried about losing my job. I don't know if that would have happened or not, but that was something that was in the back of my mind. It's something that I truly regret, because looking back on it, I think I should have been more forceful in a sense.
Yeah, I can understand that. When did you get the word your father passed away?
The phone rang around 5 a.m. and the VA doctor had mentioned that my dad didn't make it through the night. And I was quite shocked, because each time in the past when I got those calls, it was like, well, he pulled through and we're going to watch him. But it did break my heart in a sense that I think she felt that I was very cold, because there was a sense of relief that also washed over me during that call, simply because I knew that he was going home to be with, the Lord. But it still breaks my heart to this day that he died alone in a hospital room with no one familiar around him. And that does, it's very hard.
Wow, that's heartbreaking, Christy. It really is. What would have helped you during that time you were working and caring for your father?
More resources. As far as back then, again, like I had said earlier, I was young and I didn't know enough about that role in particularly. I think that if I would have had more family, and if my manager would have been a little more sympathetic to the fact that sometimes different people's illnesses affect them differently. Where one person might need to visit someone just once or twice, there's going to be other times that you need to go multiple times. And I think that that's hard maybe for employers to understand. And I think it's hard to explain it to them. And I think back then, if I would have known that, I think just being more vocal with your manager would have been helpful for me.
That's really insightful. What other recommendations would you have for working family caregivers?
I would say reach out as far as either, especially now, the internet probably has a lot, probably what you do as far as what you're doing now. Just resources as far as on the internet, or even maybe pastors, friends, other people that's done it before. Just learning what they did and the techniques that help them get through something.
Yes. Now, what would you like to say to employers of working family caregivers?
The relationship that I have with my manager presently, I feel like I'm able to tell her anything, whether it's personal or work-related, and she's very open with me. And I think just having an honest relationship with your manager and being able to tell them, this is the situation I'm in, and this is hypothetically what could happen in the future, and maybe have that planned out before the illness progresses. I think to be upfront with them and let them know what you expect when that actually happens. And I wish I would have known that when I was younger. Now I foresee, like my mom, for example, is elderly as well, and just is in poor health. I could see myself saying to my manager, this is what I'm going to expect. My mom's not doing well, and, this is what time off I have, and if I use it all, then I expect you to know that I am still going to take time off unpaid. I think I've learned, as far as the situation that happened with my dad has made me become a person that realizes that that's my passion in life, is to be able to care for other people, whether it's my father or other people. I would encourage anybody that is going through a caretaker position with their parents or watching their elderly parents' health decline, that they reach out to any type of resource that would help them, whether it's a pastor, a friend, a neighbor, someone else that's gone through it, so you don't feel like you're alone, because it's a huge stress dealing with it, but there are lots of people out there that's willing to help you with this.
Thank you, Christy, for sharing your story and the challenges you faced as a working family caregiver. If you are a family caregiver or employer looking for more resources about this important topic, visit daughtersintheworkplace.com, or for our friends in Canada, daughtersintheworkplace.ca. This is Goergene Lahm from Home Instead Senior Care. Thanks for listening.